Hey, what's up, Podcast America? And you know what, Mike? Let's just start with that one because I always forget my own.
Boom.
Training Northwest, which you can find at trainingnorthwestllc.com. And our full 2024 firearms range training calendar is up. And there's going to be some additions of, I believe it's June 9th. We're going to do a first aid and ham radio class. It's not posted yet, but keep your eyes on the website. And Jordan is also working out some details. We're going to do a pasture-to-table class where folks are going to come out. You're going to have to butcher an animal and build a fire and cook your animal over an open fire the old way. So it will be a long day, a full day. But this is the one I'm actually most excited about because this is true like heritage skills, and these are the kinds of things that even if you're not someone who considers yourself a protector in society, you should be a homesteader in society. And so learning how to butcher, or I should say slaughter, butcher, field dress, and cook an animal, like all in one. In the morning, it's going to be a living, breathing sheep. And in the evening, it's going to be
tacos.
Exactly.
Yeah. Not everyone has to fight, but everyone has to eat.
Yep. And if you are someone who wants to consider yourself a protector and defender of society, come out for range training because I think that it's irresponsible to carry a gun in public or to even keep a gun in your nightstand for home defense if you have not taken the time and the effort to go get yourself trained and sort of begin to develop that skill set, because you cannot go to a jiu-jitsu lesson and then be ready for the UFC. You cannot lift weights one time and be fit for life. So if you want to consider yourself a protector in society, and I think a lot of men want to, like their ego wants to carry that role, but they don't want to put the time and the it comes down to responsibility. They don't want to put the time and the effort into going out, getting some training, and then sustaining that training through their own dry fire work at home and, occasional range days and whatnot. So come see us. We'll get you started down that path. There's going to be more coming from me, probably like a Patreon type channel on sort of the dry fire and sustainment type stuff you can do on your own at home. And anyway, just like I said, you can follow us on social media or on the website. I think right when you go to my homepage, there's a spot to put in your email address. So you'll get I sent out my first newsletter blast the other day. I promise not to blow you guys up more than, 4 or 5 times a year, but just to keep yourself updated on new things that are coming.
Also, new things that are coming. Well, old thing that's coming again. Rifleman Camp's going to be coming up, and that sells out quickly.
Yes, it is.
So if you're interested,
I think it's already 25% sold out.
Is it?
Yes.
God damn.
So we're also adding ham radio to it this year. So Brent's all
best
on board.
best class ever. Adult.
It's Boy Scouts for adults.
Camp. Yeah. Adult summer
Boy
camp.
Scout camp for grown men.
Yeah.
If that's something that interests you, jump on it quickly because it almost certainly will sell out. All right, so we got a couple of podcasts to go over because I feel like the gym is turning into the Marvel universe where there's all these different sort of different characters arising. We have our best friend Tyler Stanaway, who again I'm not even going to try to explain what everything he's got going on over there, but go to compassionateviking.com and follow him on social media as well to stay up to date with him. We have our other best friend Christy Campbell and her podcast Coffee Talk. And also her Fit Me Nutrition and Business Coach Manager. Biz Coach Manager, I believe is the name. I'm probably butchering it. But again, go follow her on Instagram or head over or search Coffee Talk in your
all podcast
application. Yep. And then we got Danny Leyland, and his podcast is called
White Belt Mafia.
And I have not had a chance to listen to that one yet, but I
heard
everybody's talking about it, so it must be good. And then we got one more. Our fourth best friend, Will No-Tell.
Yeah, Patriotic Islander.
It's getting a lot to keep up with.
Got a Rolodex over here.
It's a Marvel universe.
Yeah, he just put out his pilot episode, and I believe content's coming soon, once a week for it. So now that pilot's out.
I know he's on Spotify. He's probably on Apple as well. Go give him a follow. He's
going to be on YouTube, I'm pretty sure, as well.
Awesome.
He's the only smart guy that does video.
Yeah. Okay. So today, Mike and I, sort of following last week's conversation, wanted to talk about vigilantism, and that's what we did.
Yeah. Vigilante, not only safety, but your personal well-being, like your food, what it means to be a strong mentally and emotionally, just how to be a strong individual that protects yourself from everything this world has to offer. But then that leads to government, that leads to corruption, that leads to everything we talk about, the basics.
Yep. Enjoy the show, you guys. We miss you, Jordan.
A little bit.
All right, we're recording, and we're missing our spirit animal, and we're both feeling a little flat because we just we worked out and did the sauna cold plunge. And
not flat, I'm on a cloud.
You're on a cloud, yeah. I don't know if it just relaxes me too much or if it's that it's like a complete exhaustion, because between the workout and then your body's actually working really hard in the sauna and the cold plunge as well.
It's a lot of cardio when you're in that sauna. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like we just stressed ourselves for a solid 2.5, 3 hours. And I don't know if I'm feeling exhaustion or if I'm feeling zen.
Both.
Yeah.
Is there a difference, really?
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe not.
I think that's what runner's high is you run so much, you get exhaustion, euphoria.
Yeah. It's a little bit of like, we used to call it droning in the Army, when you're walking for miles and miles and miles all through the night, and you're almost like half asleep. Like your brain turns off and you just sort of focus on the person in front of you.
Just go autopilot.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. It is weird when you go autopilot throughout stuff in life, like driving. You ever notice?
Oh, highway hypnosis?
Yeah.
I've had that a whole bunch of times where I'll be on my way to my my folks' place in Oregon, and it's like, wait a minute, how did we get to Vancouver?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like the last time I remember, we were in Olympia.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Bunch of fast food trash bags and Red Bull cans around you, and you just kind of come to, you're like, what the hell happened? Yeah. The good road trip, man. Good old road trips.
Yeah.
Well, we have no Jordan.
We have no Jordan.
I think that means
he's coaching high school wrestling today, and that guy he doesn't talk about it, but he puts a shitload of his own time into coaching that team.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
A ton of time.
It's serious dedication. So,
well, not only is it like the practice, like daily after work, and then help coach daily at the high school, but then it's like, oh, I got my weekend to look forward to, and it's full Saturdays completely taken from morning till night with those tournaments.
Yeah.
So it's like you get one day for yourself, and you get all the shit done in your life
pretty
as well.
much, yeah, but no evenings either.
Yeah.
Hell of a commitment.
Yeah. That's why I quit coaching wrestling.
I was relieved from my position as T-ball manager. Kidding. I was not relieved. Well, shit. I was going to save this for when Jordan gets back, but I'm hoping we'll have Brent in here next week. I was thinking about Batman and Vigilantism, and sort of ties into last weekend's conversation about how rule of law is breaking down, and the authorities who ostensibly exist to, sort of uphold law and order are no longer doing their job. At what point will we see the rise of sort of neighborhood and community vigilantism, as people realize that if they want to keep crime out of their neighborhoods, they're going to have to do it themselves? Or will we?
Yeah. Well, you'd think it would most likely start in the city, right? If crime is a driving factor and it's not getting mitigated, that the people dealing with it the most, i.e. the Skid Row of Seattle, all those smash and grab things of people grabbing $800 or less, or probably technically more, of stuff and running out of the stores, you start to see kind of videos of people getting fed up. And like there was that during that COVID and then the riots, and then it seemed to be all those smash and grab kind of things happening. There was an old lady, like I think it was in Tennessee, and some like blue-haired old lady with a shopping cart at like a Walmart. And she's blocking off a bunch of people trying to steal stuff.
Yeah.
And it's like, what is that? Is that this is happening in these urban areas more, and you're starting to see people kind of getting sick of it? Or at that time, it wasn't that long that stuff was happening. You're seeing people with strong morals being like, this isn't right. And so when do you step in your area or your community if you're seeing that stuff happening, or if you're seeing constant drug people in Seattle breaking into businesses? At what point do citizens get frustrated with their livelihood and their job or even their community being diminished, and they want that to stop?
Yeah. A, yes. B, down in Seattle, it kind of feels like people are just sort of letting it, like they are adapting to it and turning a blind eye to it. And it makes me wonder how low and how bad it has to get before. I mean, obviously the citizenship of Seattle is very left leaning, and they kind of asked for this in a lot of ways, and a lot of them are probably having a little whiplash of our ideas aren't working out, and we're clinging on to them and not wanting to acknowledge and say, hey, we were wrong and this is not working.
Yeah.
But how low do you have to go? Like how rampant does crime have to become before you say, hang on a minute, this is a fucking problem? And even, now in 2020, well, it's 24 now, but in 23, remember there was that video of the two Sikh brothers who own, I think, like a little supermarket down in San Francisco, and they beat the shit out of that guy who was trying to steal from them with like a mop handle.
Yeah.
And they're, last I heard, I think they're on trial. But the public was widely, or at least the local public was like, yeah, fuck those guys. How dare they beat this guy up? And it's like, man, imagine that being your livelihood. Like, people think that they hear business owner and they assume wealthy, which isn't the case at all, especially if you're running a little tiny neighborhood supermarket. You barely have the budget to keep the shelves stocked and then pay your own like living expenses.
Yeah.
And so when you see someone in there stealing the product off the shelves, that's it. That's now you don't have the ability to pay your own mortgage or your own rent at the end of the month. And it's like, yeah, of course they started fucking beating him with a mop handle. That he's lucky that's all that he had done to him. But where is the compassion for the small business owner?
Yeah.
Because this problem all stemmed from this idea of we have to be compassionate to addicts. That's where this all started.
Well, and
compassion for addicts turned into tolerance for crime.
Yeah. Well, and that's why I say, like, I don't think you can get away with that as much in the rural areas here. And I mean, it does kind of happen. I mean, it happens everywhere. Crime's up everywhere, and violent crimes are up. But the places where we kind of allow it to happen, like in the downtown of the Seattle, I look at that as an interesting factor because, like I said, that's where you have the hardest of the skid rows, and that's where you have the most businesses being assaulted. And even though they're a bit more liberal, it's like, well, how far can the human spirit, the American dream of the entrepreneurship, the community, and this is my place where I live and I have kids and family, how far do you let that go before you start pushing back and resisting on it? I think, to me, that's the canary in the coal mine, is a place that allows it, but then really starts to 180. Like they say, the pendulum always shifts, and usually it shifts due to pressure making things uncomfortable. Will there come to be a point in Seattle where it's like the citizens are like, all right, druggies and crime people, I got the broom and the water bottle, scat, Like, when does the citizen step up? Vigilantism doesn't necessarily mean like, I'm the cop, I'm the judge, I'm the executioner. I think, to me, vigilantism a little bit means more like the citizens, the group, everyone taking a little bit more, not authority, but just the space around you and making it a safer area, or not allowing, shit to happen. But then, like you said, the store owners, they kind of take matters into their own hand because this is happening a lot and no one's there to stop them, and now they get persecuted. Yep. So are you sending a message to the public in doing so judicially that when you start to take matters into your hand, we're going to come after you instead of letting us handle it? But then as a citizen, you're more frustrated because, like, listen, motherfucker, you're not handling it. That's why I had to stick a broom handle up this guy's butt.
Yeah, well, it's also this weird duality where, God dang it. So the citizens of Seattle wanted a society in which responsibility is taken away from the individual and given to the state, in this case the city. where government services provide security, they provide social services, yada, 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 and the individual is responsible for very little. But then they started going toward limiting the reach of certain social services, specifically police, right? Defund the police, reduce the number of officers. One of the guys here at the gym had his truck broken into on Big Tom on New Year's Eve, and it took 2 days for him to get in contact with the police, and then they told him, sorry, we only have 2 officers on duty in the North Precinct at any one time. And I think as an overall department, the Seattle Police Department is like 530 officers short of its full staffing. So they're hurting big time for people because of the public resentment toward the institution that the public said, we want them to provide our security. We don't want to do it for ourselves. And so now they've sort of created this situation themselves. And I guess leads me right back to how low do they have to go before they acknowledge, hey, our ideas were fucked up and we were wrong and we need to try something different. It's this weird human tendency to cling on to, it's almost like it's part of your identity. Like, hey, I was so vested in this idea that I just can't let it go. Yeah. I can see it failing miserably in front of my face, and I'm going to maintain that I am correct indefinitely.
Well, that's not so much of a government problem. That's a problem with people in the government that have
it's
normal
the citizen. It's the voters. It's a voter problem.
Yeah, but
the voters can see plainly that the things they have voted for are failing, and they continue to vote for it.
But I mean, that person, like the Seattle City Council, God, what's the Indian woman's name?
Oh God, there's Pramila Jayapal.
Yeah,
and who was the other one who they tried to recall? I want to say ACO, but not her.
No.
I can't.
I forget her name.
Yeah.
But like
Kashama Sawant.
Yes.
There we go.
But I mean, that human condition, is it really that she believes this is the best way for the city to be? Or is it like she got like hype and she got validation because of people supporting her?
Yes.
And it's better to watch it burn down than to admit you're wrong and try and restructure.
Maintain that support, maintain that little bit of authority and power, and what's the endorphin you get?
Epinephrine?
No. God damn it.
Oxytocin?
No.
Love?
Love.
You want some oxytocin, my friend?
Hang on. Dopamine. Hang on to that little dopamine high that they got from their public support, and just try to hang on. Again, when it's failing miserably right in front of their face.
Yeah.
And for a lot of, like, the city council members, a lot of them are so isolated because they live in, like, the richer parts of town. No, it's not in their face. So they are disconnected from what the average small business owner down in, like, Sodo is having to deal with.
Does a Seattle City Council member make much money?
I bet they make $150K a year. I don't know. We'd have to search it.
Do you think I could run for Seattle City Council?
I'd vote for you.
What you do? Could you imagine me campaigning?
Oh, God. He's 8 minutes late. 8 minutes late to his own speech. This is Kozak time, people.
Yeah, he started late, but he had a really good platform, I'd like to think. Wouldn't that be crazy to engage in public speaking events as to your community and what you think is, Yeah. And our council members don't fight. I feel like having like this is supposed to be a debate of ideas and stuff. But most of the Seattle, like the council members, they listen to the citizens and then they just kind of agree with each other and pass notions. Yeah. Like a real city council should be like a 24-hour live feed of them just yelling back and forth. Yeah. Like it should be diverse opinions. Maybe that's would be if you got like 3 Republicans and 3 Democrats mandatory on a council and it was just debate. Yeah. Or nothing would get done like our government and, they'd stall each other.
Yeah.
But back to vigilantism, I think it happens more it's more likely to happen because the community doesn't feel safe. I mean, look at murders every year. since 2020, and they keep exponentially going up. Look at crime, it keeps going exponentially up. And police officers keep going down, or response times, like you're saying with Big Tom, keep going down. So at what point on this X chart does one rising and one lowering kind of meet in the middle for citizens to be like, this
critical mass?
Yeah.
I don't know that it does, because again, you have the majority population overwhelmingly believes in like strict gun control and against owning guns themselves. They aren't physically fit enough to fight. They're not, you know what I mean? They're not going to Ivan's gym down there to learn how to throw a roundhouse. Their plan is to call 911, and in their mind, the police will appear outside their door. But nobody thinks about the fact that 911 times are down to like 15 minutes if they even answer your call.
Yeah.
There's a lot of stories out of like Chicago and Minneapolis of 911 calls just going unanswered because they don't have the staffing to answer all the calls.
Yeah.
So now they're trying to triage. They're doing their best to answer with the operators they have, and then they're having to triage the calls.
Well, to me, I kind of think of it like a, what do they call it in science? Like for an action to happen, it has to be because of a reaction. Like a nerve, for a nerve to fire, it has to get stimulated hard enough. You can kind of push against it a little bit, doesn't necessarily, yeah. But until you really push it to get that, kind of effect, it takes stimulus. And so are we how long of time does it take a nation, a city, a community of being stimulated in that way before you start to see action and repercussion, that nerve firing, and now the body's reacting, the citizen, i.e.
Yeah, you're right. And that's like a micro for even the whole country, on a macro scale, because as we slide into a recession, how low do we have to go? How much money do we have to ship to Ukraine? How expensive does life have to get before the majority goes, hey, what the fuck? And actually, I think we're there. I think the reason they're trying to get Donald Trump off the ballot is they know that if the election is fair and legal, he's going to have like 70% of the vote because people are fed the fuck up.
Yeah.
And I believe there will be some attempts at cheating, and I believe they're going to do everything they can possibly imagine to keep him off the ballot, because if he does actually take the executive office, I think a lot of those people are worried they're going to go to jail.
Yeah.
I think that the corruption is so widespread and so obvious that they all know that if a person who is willing to spearhead real investigations and hold real trials and have real sentencing gets into office, they're in big trouble.
That's one thing that worries me, though, about him is, would he really make that happen? Like, I'm not pro or con Donald Trump, but there are things I disagree with, and especially like the keeping of Fauci around.
Yeah.
And like if you look at certain members of the cabinet, just how many people he would hire,
yeah,
to kind of once again have someone else do the job. Do you think he has the real, the bullheadedness or the strength to persecute?
I wonder if he wouldn't actually be a better president this time around, because he can learn. He definitely, that the whole revolving door of cabinet members was fucking wild during his presidency. But I'm not trying to make excuses for it, but I wonder if this was his first go in government, right?
Yeah.
So he stepped straight into the fire with no experience. And I wonder if next time around, now that he's had 4 years to reflect, if he wouldn't make a lot more solid choices from the perspective of the mistakes made, and seeing how much power those cabinet members were able to exercise to affect his decision making, or not his decision making, but to sort of negate him, and that having the wrong people in really, like, it was kind of a big mistake. Like, he made some big mistakes with personnel choices. And I wonder if those mistakes won't lead to better personnel choices should he have a second term.
Well, and you have a lot of people that still don't like Trump because of smear campaign, and not like what was his policy, just he's racist, he's sexist, the normal things you throw out there.
That wasn't his policy. That You're saying the smear campaign.
Yeah, the smear campaign. People aren't against him because of what his policy was, but because of saying, "Oh, I don't like Trump." What? Yeah, that kind of stuff. Yeah. But then it's like, well, this thing that was supposed to be, let me come back to the adults back in the room and reasonability, and having Biden will bring normalcy. But if you look at how many young voters,
transvestite fucking cabinet members can we pack in here?
But a lot of young voters of that ilk, of that LGBTQ, of this drug addicts are cool, everyone's a victim. They don't like Biden, and especially a lot has to do with the Israel-Gaza thing. And so those voters aren't going to vote for Biden, and they won't necessarily vote for Trump. And so it makes you wonder where those votes will start to go if, like, the RFK gains traction instead of our two people that so many people don't want, it seems like.
I think I don't think you can include Trump in the people don't want. I think 60 to 70% of America wants him.
But those blue-haired people don't want him too, and they're a big vote. But that's making me think, like, once again, going towards vigilantism, like, even those people are starting to be like, the system's kind of fucking me.
Yes.
And that's where I wonder where those votes are, like, how far did those people get pushed?
Yeah, I voted for Biden, and 4 years later, I'm still making minimum wage at Starbucks.
Yeah.
And I wonder if some of those people, as they were 21 in the last election, so now they'll be 25. Mm-hmm. I wonder if they won't be looking around and going like, well, you know what? In 2019, I was doing pretty well financially, and now I'm struggling to fill my gas tank and buy my groceries.
Yeah.
And suddenly you go, you know what? Biden didn't sit at my dinner table.
Yeah.
Why the fuck do I care who's in the Oval Office?
Yeah.
What I care about is the cost of gas and the cost of fucking cheese.
And if you're more likely to lean towards that thinking, you're probably closer to a city than living out in the country.
Yeah.
And so now not only is it more expensive and it's tougher to live, but also your city feels a bit more dangerous too when the person's saying, I'm going to bring normalcy back.
Yes. And if this trend of crime continues, Seattle literally will be Gotham City in 5 years.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Where the police just don't give a fuck because there's not enough of them. They're outnumbered by violent thugs. And everywhere, most of the small restaurants and bars in the downtown area are closed.
Yeah.
Like Jordan and I went walking around down there 2 Christmases ago after the company Christmas party because it used to be fun to go bar hopping after the Christmas party. Mm-hmm. We had to walk a mile to find an open bar.
Yeah.
Downtown is closing up shop.
Blues on every corner, but not a bar that's open.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, how far is far? I mean, that's what vigilantism is. How far do you get pushed? Once again, that nerve getting stimulated.
Yeah.
What is the point in which you're like and then it makes me kind of also think, like, have you ever heard of, like, a lot of libertarians will throw out the idea of having police forces being contracted out? Like, instead of it being your tax dollars funding, like, we'll allocate, here's our budget for safety. But I think there was a couple cities that tried it, maybe in Texas or in the Midwest, that instead of having a police department, they're like, hey, bid for being the police. What is your a bunch of contractors write a doctrine? What are your skills? What are your performances? And if a group wasn't performing adequately enough, you could fire them like a business.
Yeah, no, and have them work in their community.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. If you could match what I make right now as a general foreman, and pay me to be a police officer in the community in which I live, I'd probably say yes. Yeah. And I'm pretty well qualified to do it. The other thing I was going to say is sort of a Mike Zedong type model might be to make it a requirement of property management that you must serve on a community, like a community watch type organization where, one night a month you're on duty.
Yeah.
And it's just your job to hang out in your little neighborhood block whatever, you know,
Or
like
for
Foursquare
4
blocks or
years,
whatever.
every citizen is required to have some sort of authoritarian position, like authoritarian, like being part of police, being part of community outreach, being part of these things that promote safety.
Yeah, but then have all these neighborhood watches comprised of home or property owners who then are in contact with the actual police officers on duty in that city or precinct or whatever. And that way you have eyes and ears everywhere for the sake of reporting, and give them a little bit of authority to actually intervene in crimes and make arrests.
Yeah.
And that's a way to have people who they're vested in their own community, obviously. And then that puts a lot more bodies out on the street.
Not only does it put more bodies on the street, but being a police officer, I think, is a tough job personally for that individual, because what you're constantly seeing is the worst of the worst in dealing with that crime. And then as normal Joe citizen, you don't see that. So you have one person being overburdened and dealing with the 5% of the population that's a piece of shit, and the other part living completely oblivious to those actions in the community and those people that are hurting, or these people that have a rough life and need more investment. And as a citizen, if you are seeing that all the time, it would make you want to maybe clean your room up or keep your house clean. Yeah. In a metaphorical sense of, like, my community needs me. It's better to raise children with stronger morals, to be a stronger part of the society or the community I live in, to instill that this shit doesn't happen, and also that there are problems out here. Yeah. It's not me just going to work and filling up my gas tank and going to Costco. It's you're creating more invested culture, society.
Well, and if you live in a shitty part of town, you have a lot of incentive to want to clean it up, because otherwise you're going to have to deal with it every time it's your turn to be on patrol.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like fat shaming someone or a community into doing that.
You want a safer community? Get off your ass and be part of the fucking patrol.
Yeah. Yeah. It is a weird idea for vigilantism, just because we're so far removed from it. Just that idea of calling.
And I wonder how long until, like, the more suburban neighborhoods start to go, okay, you know what? Let's at least have, like, a little group of us that are on speed dial, just in case.
Yeah. Oh. Should have turned ringers off. Sorry, Podcast America. Yeah. I'm just going to make sure.
Do we need to talk to Danielle?
No, we're good. I'm just making sure it doesn't ring anymore.
All right.
There you go.
Okay.
Yeah,
because it just makes me think, because where I'm moving next month, where this house I bought up north, it's a little HOA, but it's kind of out in the middle of nowhere.
No.
So I could, it's far removed from the population centers where all the crime sort of sprouts up and emulates from, or radiates from. So it's very low probability that I'll have to deal with any of these issues up there. But at the same time, I could see that type of little community where they know they're isolated, putting together a little neighborhood watch type of agreement.
You all get bowling jackets that say Crime Stoppers on the back. Hell yeah.
If there's bowling shirts, I'm in. I'm so in.
What do you think the difference is between crimes that exist in cities and in rural areas? Because, I mean, rural areas like
rural areas, it's all based on alcoholism and crystal meth. Cities, it's based on fentanyl.
Yeah. But it's less probably in rural areas still, even though we have our crime. Is it because
the population is more spread out?
Yeah.
So there's a lot of opportunity for crime in population-dense areas. Plus, you have all the homeless industrial complex type nonprofit organizations that are handing out food and blankets and whatnot. So if you're someone who's sort of living that derelict life, you want to stay close to the hand that will feed you.
Yeah.
And then look for crimes most of these crimes are crimes of opportunity. And there's more opportunity where there's more people.
Do you think all of it is necessary homeless? Because I've heard wild stats that, like, since COVID, there are 10 million children that are unaccounted for in school systems. Not meaning they've been abducted, but meaning that kids that were kind of on the outs have just committed themselves a life to.
Right. Their parents were already homeless, and the school was like the one little bit of stability. Like, it was like where they ate breakfast and lunch and the little bit of stability they had, and they've just sort of disappeared into the street life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you're making more derelicts out there. It's weird. I've heard the stat that in the summer, crime always goes up and murder always goes up in the summer. And the best explanation I've always heard it for is that you have young men out and about without structure.
Yeah.
And they don't have to be to school. They don't have to do certain things. And that's when you get groups of young men causing trouble. And that's where crime and murder happens
100%.
from. Yeah. And that seems to be way bigger since 2020. Is that part of 2020 happening? Is that 10 million young men just not having purpose, or life's tough and the homeless community is bigger and the drug community is bigger? Does that fuel it?
I think it's all of it. It's harder now. It's harder to buy a first house. If you're 28 years old and a professional and you're trying to buy your first house, it's damn near impossible because the prices are so high and the interest rates are so high. So it has to be the same for an 18-year-old who's just moving out of his house. And I know, because I just got divorced, that a one-bedroom apartment in Snohomish County is about $2,100 a month.
It's crazy.
And that doesn't, and then they tack on, like the water, sewer, garbage, and
Power,
et cetera, on top of that. So you're looking at like $2,500 a month to rent a single-bedroom apartment around here. So if you're 18 years old and you're trying to get your first job and just trying to get out there and make it, it's got to be like, what do you do? What do you do?
Move back in with the parents.
Yeah, or you end up living on the streets with your fucking derelict buddies.
Yeah. Do you think if we, like World War II internment camps of the Japanese, rounded up all young men, crime would stop a lot more?
All young men?
Maybe young men with that unemployed,
like an entirely female society.
Unemployed young men. I'm just saying, like, do you think if you were to do that and put them in internment camps, crime would dramatically reduce? Not saying it's wrong or right, would it?
I don't even think unemployed. I think if you rounded up all drug-addicted people on the streets, crime would fucking plummet.
Yeah. But we don't do anything.
No, we don't, because a lot of people make six-figure salaries to work on the homeless problem.
Well, and I'm not even, like, anti-drug. I'm more just, like, don't even do it in public. Like, if you're able to maintain a 40-hour-a-week job and pay all your own bills,
get fucked up on Saturday.
Yeah.
But the moment that you're living on the streets, leaving your expended needles on the sidewalk, taking shits on this, like, you're no longer living. You're slowly dying. Yeah. And in a very horrible way. Let's either get you into a camp and clean you up, or just fucking put you in the trebuchet and feed the orcas.
Yeah, launch them out to sea.
Someone needs to make a t-shirt of that.
I know, that's a good one. I do like it. Yeah, then I don't know. Didn't Snohomish County start to reverse some of these drug things? Like, Marysville's trying to clean it up that you can't do drugs in public.
Oh, God. So, okay, walking out of the grocery store to come here today, there is a Marysville police vehicle in the parking lot, and the officer is out talking to some woman who's probably trying to steal groceries. But following on from last week's episode, where I was talking about, I'm so fed up with the failures of the institutions that just I'm going to play by my own rules, and anybody who wants to fight about it, just come on. And I looked at the police officer, and I can't even tell you if it was a male or female, because he or she looked about 14 years old and had the physicality of a 14-year-old boy.
Nice.
And I just thought to myself, this is the person who they're going to tell, hey, you need to go arrest Tobin.
Yeah.
Good fucking luck.
A little twink. Yeah. Well, and
man.
we talked about that a little bit on the last episode, like the COVID thing affecting the police, or not COVID, but defund the police. I think a lot of the good ones have stopped working. Like they want to get out, or they went to departments or communities that really pushed it more.
Yes.
So now you have communities more liberal, like the Seattle, taking whoever they can because they just need bodies in the street at this point.
Yes.
Well, what does that cop really do? Does that cop strive for leadership, make a difference in the community, help instill values and morals in people? Or it's just now you're starting like the Germany back in the day to just, I need people that will follow orders and do their job.
They're looking for people who will follow their orders and do what they're told. The problem is again, because society has sort of glamorized this new version of humanity that is fat and weak, and so, like it's okay to be fat and weak, and so the people who they're both weak mentally and weak physically are the ones who fall in line when authority tells you to do something.
Yeah.
So all your yes men are mentally weak.
Yeah.
So then you come up against, take the group of people that we associate with who are mentally very fucking tough.
Yeah.
And to me, that is why I have so much confidence in our ability to resist until the bitter end.
Yeah.
It's because we are mentally tough.
Yeah.
And people who fall into line are mentally weak.
But isn't it our job as tough people to instill weaker people to become tough? Like those strong cops and stuff that left, that hurts and creates a scar in the community. So where do those people...
Well, this ties into the conversation. Is I think that because our communities are being run by authoritarians who hire mentally weak people, it will crash. It's not sustainable. You cannot function a society that way.
Yeah.
And at some point, there will come a point where we will slowly, or not we, but people with constitution will slowly begin to assume control of society, whether by, legal official channels or just indirectly. You know what I mean? When a strong leader arrives, they just naturally begin to lead.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter whether they were voted in or have the proper documentation.
No.
Strong leaders always rise and end up leading their whatever their little sphere of influence is. They become a leader in that sphere.
How do we get stronger leaders into politics or into government or into these structures?
I think there needs to be one of the things I like about Vivek Ramaswamy is that he talks about completely just closing down the FBI, closing down all these. Like, we really do have to start over, because there has to be a 100% just you're all out, and we're recreating everything from the ground up.
Yeah,
I think the corruption is so deep, the mentality of bureaucracy and just sort of like maintaining your little fiefdom of influence and or bureaucratic sort of power. It's so entrenched that all of these people need to go.
Well, do you think
they'll have to struggle for work, because if you've been a 20-year government bureaucrat, you aren't qualified to do a fucking thing.
Yeah.
You are literally the most unqualified person on planet Earth.
Yeah. Well, do you think that they could, they fire everybody, I mean, you still need a form of FBI. The way that it is certain areas have become corrupt.
No, I agree, but you'll have to start a new agency with people who have never been in, maybe never even been in law enforcement, especially at the administrative level.
But you're going to need... I mean, I'm sure there's still good people in the FBI.
There are good people in every agency.
Yeah.
But they are also mentally weak and afraid to step out of line.
Do you think a lack of transparency, having these people operate in their own insulated bubble, where it's like, you've got this allowance and this amount of time, you do whatever you want in this kind of field, a lack of transparency and accountability creates the ability to fuck over the system, to fuck people, to create corruption, to create these things. If everything the government did that was shady was known by the citizens, it probably wouldn't last very long because there would be so much outcry, or there would be so, just it's visible. It's easier to be a pervert when no one's watching than to be a pervert in front of a giant group of people.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
I think that's happening right now and that's why Elon Musk is under attack with Twitter, and they're trying to shut down all of these sort of, again, the internet and everybody having a smartphone in their pocket has created this propagation of information that's unprecedented.
Yeah.
And that's why there's all this scramble. I think that's why we're going through all this upheaval right now, is because suddenly we have access to a ton of unfiltered information. And so now everybody's awakening. We're finding out how fucked up the system actually is and how corrupt it is. And I think the old power system, the people within it, are scrambling to try like crazy to maintain control of their power. It is a dying gasp of the old system.
Yeah. But then, so it makes me think, for a new system, you would need more transparency.
Yes, because information is going to flow so freely with this new technology that we do need a transparent system, and that requires people of honor to fill the positions within it.
Probably also a mission statement or more of a doctrine. Like, what does the FBI do? No fucking clue. I know that they're supposed to.
They have a mission statement. We could look it up.
Yeah.
To provide foreign, counterintelligence activity and law enforcement.
Right. Okay.
Domestic.
So that's very vague, though.
Yes.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
So, like, transparency.
And they take great liberties with the language and the interpretation of it. Yeah.
So, like, a doctrine that is very specific as to what your agency does. Like,
but then they'll create like a secret subdivision within the agency that has its own charter to spot, you know what I mean, to enforce the Patriot Act. And
every time secrecy is omitted, that's where you create the ability for corruption. If we wanted to do this over in the Vivek idea, where it's like burn it all down and restart it, you would need transparency constantly happening. This is kind of like the Mike Zedong idea, where it's like, oh, you could vote on everything. But and that's how, I don't know, actions, bills, everything happens is more of a vote-based process. That gives you transparency in knowing what's constantly happening, eliminating corruption. But then it makes me also think, like, America is so diverse and different that you're going to constantly have people voting for and against, and whatever, anything ever get done, there's going to be clashing all the time. I do think about that a lot of, transparency, why there feels to be so many people fed up is because I do believe that exchange of idea provides all this. The release of emails, FOIA requests, hacks, all these leaks, that's providing information to the citizen, which thus makes the temperature of the country boil and get a little bit more crazier. But it's due to instant communication, the communication of what's happening in government brought to the eyes of the citizen. Yes. So if communication and transparency is constantly key, would a more successful FBI be one that's more involved with its citizens and transparent and honest and giving daily briefs to the country, more so than briefs to, this is our shadow little operation we're running over here to try and sway a group of rebels that, in our mind, is going to provide national security and lack of terrorists or threat.
Yeah. I'm trying to think of what the right answer. There is no
right answer yet.
I was about to say maybe every law enforcement and intelligence agency every 8 years just needs to be disbanded and restarted from scratch. But then you maintain no capability.
But that's the idea of president. Like, I always think, like, China has a much better ability of getting shit done, because if you have one guy in power for, say, 30 years, well, that vision has a lot of time. Maybe it's a bad vision, maybe it's a good vision, but the ability for one group to get shit done over a 20-year period is going to probably be more efficient than a group coming in every 8 years, doing something, getting disbanded. But a group that's constantly in and then out won't allow corruption. That's kind of like the term limits things. Every government official, if you have senators that have been in power for 40 years, well, you have the ability to be swayed, corrupted, and to do your own fuckery in the government.
You could end that real fast by enforcing treason and having a division of the FBI that is literally exists to oversee the House and the Senate. If you're taking improper money from a lobbyist, fucking hang you on the White House lawn. If you're conducting insider trading, hang you on the White House lawn. And within like 2-3 hangings, you'd have all the corruption sewn up pretty neatly, I bet.
Yeah. A purge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It wouldn't take you'd only have to swing a few before they said, you know what, fuck it, I'm not doing insider trading. I'm not signing contracts with my or I'm not going to declare war on Ukraine just so that Raytheon can get some big contracts on some guided munitions.
Well, then not only is it like communication or clarity or transparency, but its consequences need to be more enacted or emphasized.
Enforced.
Yes.
Literally enforced. Like, treason is already a crime.
Yeah, but it doesn't seem like
right? Yeah, it kind of doesn't seem like it.
Yeah, right?
Yeah, exactly.
It's not thin ice. But if it was really, if consequences were more of a thing in this country, it would probably make people monitor their character a little bit compared to, I got caught, I got slapped on the wrist, I'll go on a apology tour, and then I'm back in office or doing,
Yeah. I got to pee. We either got to pause it or you got to talk to yourself.
All right, pause.
All right, peeing is complete. We're back. Mike, we left off. We're talking about vigilantism, and I brain farted a little bit.
You're good. I got this. Also, with being a vigilante isn't necessarily, in my eyes, you got me thinking, it's not just like standing up against crime and stuff, but like everything everyone preaches here about, no one's coming to save you, take things into your own hands. Your health is being your own vigilante for your body and your autonomy. Your education, like reading things, being well informed, that's being
mind, body, spirit. That's one of the things I kind of push with Training Northwest is mind, body, spirit is your primary weapon system. It's not the gear you buy and put in a closet or in a safe. It's fucking you. And you need to be physically fit. You need to be of clear and sharp mind, and you need to be spiritually centered.
And it's weird that everything that gives you strength, being your own vigilante in life, I like that. That's our T-shirt.
Yeah.
That is what they're saying is racist or wrong.
Yes.
Looking at...
that's toxic masculinity.
Yeah. Being strong is racist. Doing your own research, well, that's conspiracy and dumb and racist.
Yeah.
All these things that provide you self-strength is being demonized.
Lifting weights is white for white supremacists.
Well, my Mein Kampf weights.
Why are all the dumbbells shaped like swastikas?
Yeah. Put on a little mustache as I do bench press.
Oh, my God.
But it's being demonized, and it makes me think... If society does get to a point where it really does fall apart, and it's like, we've got roaming bands of people robbing, are they going to be like, hey, if you stop one of these roaming bands, you're a racist because these people need that? And honestly, like, how far would it go where standing up and protecting yourself, whether it's through food, through education, through safety and community, will they ever stop kind of demonizing that they want the system, you to be dependent on the system?
No, the government as it stands right now will not, because they want you dependent on them, because that gives them power and authority, and it also gives them wealth. If you look at like food stamps, so food stamps, you're allowed to buy Kellogg's and General Mills and whatnot, and when you have sort of lesser means, then you're not going to go over, when I go grocery shopping, I go to the produce section, and then I grab some coffee out of the aisle, and then I go to the meat section. And that's that whole shop the periphery of the grocery store idea.
Yeah.
You really shouldn't have to go down the aisles other than to get things like coffee and hot sauce.
Yeah.
But if you're of limited means, then you shop the cheap shit, the Pop-Tarts, the frozen
Burritos.
fish sticks. Yeah, exactly, because you can feed everybody on very little. And so what welfare and food stamps are is basically subsidizing the big food companies like Kellogg's, like General Mills, like Coca-Cola, because all that taxpayer money is going to those food stamps, which then gets spent on those cheap food products, which you shouldn't even call food. They're food products.
Yeah. Well, more product than food.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. So welfare and food stamps, really what it is it's not about compassion and being nice to people. It's about subsidizing these large companies.
It is weird to think that. You'd think that if someone was really on food stamps, it would be interesting if the government was like, all you get is vegetables
and chicken,
proteins, and things like that.
You are allowed to buy vegetables and chicken with food stamps. That would be amazing.
Yeah. Only that.
Yes.
Yeah.
But you're allowed to buy all kinds of shit with food stamps.
Yeah. But I mean, I don't want to tell any. Then it gets back into the freedom thing. I mean, here's an allowance. Well, yeah, go eat whatever you want. But if you're putting just poison into your body, it's not like the government really cares. Like if the government was really trying to give you a food planning.
Look which industry that feeds right into.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? The sicker you are, the more hospital appointments you go to, the more prescription drugs you get on to manage your diabetes and your high blood pressure. It's like this revolving. It's this great big subsidized system of garbage food in, garbage living out, which then people attempt to correct with more garbage medicine in.
You know,
and you look around society and go, hey, you know what? If we're so medically advanced, why does America look like America looks? Someone please walk around a fucking Walmart and tell me if modern medicine is the greatest thing on planet Earth, why the fuck do Americans look like this?
Because fast beautiful now. And so is that Down syndrome Victoria's Secret model we're talking about. It would be interesting if, you know how they have meal prep companies for bodybuilders or athletes and stuff? What if you are on food stamps?
What if you took personal responsibility and meal prep for yourself on Sunday?
No, what
Is that
if
what you're going to say?
No, what if instead of food stamps where it's like you get this allowance and get whatever you want at the grocery store, what if there was a company that got a government contract where the only thing you got was meal prep foods like that? Like, so you got bodybuilder food, or you got where it's like broccoli and fish.
Yeah. It would just open it up to corruption, not that the food stamps aren't corrupt. Because it's so easy to embezzle on a government contract because the person overseeing you doesn't understand your industry. They are a bureaucrat who don't know shit about shit. And so all they want to know is, did you file the proper forms? And it's like that bathroom down in San Francisco that cost $1 million to build in the park.
Yeah.
Because they don't know. There's nobody at the city of San Francisco that knows a fucking thing about construction who can look at that budget and be like, that seems like too much for sheetrock. They're bureaucrats. They don't know a fucking thing other than how to file their reports and make sure that they're all filed correctly. So if you have a government contract to provide food services, it's very easy to embezzle on that contract because the person overseeing you doesn't know shit about buying and selling food.
Yeah.
They just want to make sure that all their paperwork is filed correctly so they can not have a hassle from their supervisor and hopefully get promoted.
So it's like, how do you make a government that loves its citizen? And I think it's not the government. It's the citizen being the government, loving its fellow
You have to go back
citizen.
to what about like a full volunteer system?
No. Well, I mean, technically being in the government's volunteering for a position.
Except they all end up rich somehow.
I know.
Right? Senators and House reps who make like $200,000 a year, and somehow their
millionaires
net value goes up by $15 million a year.
What's Inslee worth, you think?
I don't know. Jack and shit. Just kidding. If Jay Inslee's listening, you should come for your free week at Electric North. We'll be gentle.
Yeah. Could you imagine if we got a whale of a guest like that on here and talk to him?
Yeah, that would be awesome. I would readily have the man on.
Yeah.
And I would love to have a long conversation. I won't be like gentle or nice, but it would be fun to talk to him and actually see if he can defend himself verbally.
Yeah.
Which I don't think he's capable of, which is why Has he ever been on the long form podcast? That's one of the things that I'm very encouraged by with this sort of explosion of new information and new media sources, is that mainstream media is dying. It's inevitable. Within 5 to 10 years, CNN, Fox News, all these, they're going to be gone unless the government starts subsidizing them, which they might, because it is their conduit of propaganda. But I think that in another 10 years, any type of candidate that wants to have like a serious shot for office will have to go on long form interviews. Because people are starting to realize that you can bullshit, like it's so easy to bullshit a 15-second clip. But if you're going to sit down for a 2-hour interview, you have to be genuine and you have to be ready to talk about the issues that are going to come up.
But also you see the follies of weak ideas or weak thinking. When someone's on something for 2 hours, you really get to have a better understanding of who they are.
They have to be genuine, and their ideas have to be well developed.
Yeah.
So, and I don't think Jay Inslee's, I don't think he's genuine, and I don't think his ideas are well developed. I think he's a silver spoon kid who got sent to an Ivy League school and just had his whole life handed to him, and he doesn't fucking understand how things work.
Yeah. Well, what does he always say? I care about the apple farmers because I'm from whatever. He's from some apple town. Yeah, it'd be nice to have, but that kind of goes back to, once again, transparency, like the transparency of who the person is. And what their ideas and what their thoughts are and what their beliefs and what they see as correct actions to actually make things better. I don't know. It's a weird freaking time. It's never felt weirder.
Yeah.
You know?
But this is, like, in one way, Klaus Schwab and the World Economic Forum are right. This is a reset. The difference is there are two vying factions for what's going to come of the reset. We have the authoritarians and we have the libertarians. Yeah. And I think that is the true sort of culture battle we are involved in right now, is we are experiencing a reset due to the wide proliferation of information at light speed, and we're either going to end up with an authoritarian rule or we're going to end up with a libertarian rule. And it's completely undecided right now.
Well, it also makes me think of like China and how divided our country is, and different ideas of thought, and how maybe one is more correct for living a life than another, but it doesn't seem like there is any middle ground. And if you kind of look like at China, between the rebels and the establishment, it seems like the establishment of China of the 30s is what became Taiwan, you know, and then they were considered the rebels by the uprising that came to power. But it's like, so is one going to dominate the other, or could you see America really splitting like a Taiwan and a China, in one half of America is one way and the other half of America is another way? That's the idea of like the greater Idaho, the Texas.
I see balkanization happening right now, which is different parts of the country are sort of segregating themselves, aligned, based on their like political alignments.
But that was kind of the start of the Civil War and recession, receding from the Union.
Secession.
Or secession. We're in a recession, excuse me. Secession and receding from the Union. Yeah, it'd be weird. But then it seemed like, also on a side note, it seemed like on the Civil War, you had secession happen for maybe 15 years, 10, 15 years almost. But then what really started to kick the Civil War off is when the armies are like, there were different army outposts. They had soldiers, they had weapons. And as things got more divided, states would be like, all right, we're not part of the South, or we're not part of the North. We're going to get our assets out. And then one group was like, whoa, that's in our state. That's our asset. And the other state's like, yeah, but these people are in line with us. Yeah. And it's like, that's where the fighting happens. It seems like there's a separation of idea and people, but then once resources are like going to be taken away, that's when the real fighting starts to happen.
Yeah, I had this this was years ago. I had one of my mountain biking friends said something about, well, if Eastern Washington became its own state with Eastern Oregon, they'd have no money for any of their public schools because all the industry is over here. And I just started laughing, and I was like, but all your food and electricity comes from over there.
Yeah.
So how's your industry going to run?
Yeah.
If you want to try to pretend you're so high and mighty over these rural people.
Yeah, good luck growing potatoes over in Western Washington
or beef.
compared to But that's what it is, and it makes me think about war and division, and resources is everything. I mean, that's so much of like the tension between Taiwan and China and us. I don't know, maybe not now because Biden just said he's not for free Taiwan, but we're having a lot of problems with transistor problems, a huge problem, and capacitors, and that's what we need. And if it really does go down like a World War III with China, I do feel like that's a huge thing, is Japan, Taiwan, getting these resources of what your country needs once it separates or once
it goes deeper than that, because to build the microchips, you need the raw materials, and a lot of that comes from Africa and now Afghanistan, which is owned by or run by China.
Yeah.
So even if we should bring things, all manufacturing home, but we don't have some of these raw materials to make a lot of this stuff. And the Chinese now control a lot of those markets.
China doesn't have them either. They're just controlling the market.
Correct.
So then the war becomes World War III between China and America, but it's fought in Africa.
They are the new sort of world empire emerging. Mm-hmm. But it also appears that they are doing things differently than we did. What we did was just sort of bully everybody into doing what we told them, whereas the Chinese are investing in infrastructure across Africa and across the Middle East.
Yeah.
So they're actually putting time and energy into these places. So it would be interesting to find out what people in these African countries, like where they're building highways and railroads, what they think of the Chinese, if they're pro or anti.
It's also, it kind of seems like it's not being said yet or stated, but in my opinion, I feel like there is becoming a cozy relationship with Mexico and China.
Yes.
And
well, with the cartels in China.
The cartels in China.
The Mexican government is almost obsolete.
Yeah. Well, but
they're kind of like the little brother who's like, hey guys, I'm in charge today. Hey guys, and the cartels are like, sit down and shut up.
Do you watch South Park?
I haven't in so long.
There's a great episode where the boys wanted to go to the moon, and they hired the Mexican NASA. You never saw that one?
No.
It was incredible. Yeah, it doesn't have a lot of that. But, sorry, sidetrack. But the cartel does have a lot of power. And I mean, look at how much corruption exists in Mexico compared to the United States. Unfortunately, it is worse. I would say it's worse there. So if you have...
We have white-collar corruption. Theirs is a little more like street violence corruption.
Yes. But the cartel plays a huge part in that. And then the cartel, their tentacles go into government, you know? And so if you have the...
Sort of like our white-collar corruption has its tentacles into government.
Yes.
You know what I mean? We're just playing it's a different sport. They're doing drug trafficking. We're doing... big pharma, big ag, big food.
So it makes me think, for China, instead of saddling up to the actual government, to saddle up to the cartel more. Look at where all the fentanyl and all the drugs and all the trafficking's coming through
from China.
Yeah,
raw materials from China, processed in Mexican labs, brought across the border into the United States.
So it's smarter for China.
But our police officers are giving traffic tickets.
Yeah, poor Jordan. But it's smarter to pair with the cartel than it would be with the government. And that's something that kind of scares me too.
I've considered it as an employment option should they come after me up here in Washington.
The cartel? Tobin Escobar? Then we can grow sweet Latin mustaches together.
I just want to go down there and refine cocaine. I'll just work in the lab.
Ostrich or alligator boots?
Ooh.
Yeah.
Ostrich.
Yeah. Not bad. Belt buckle?
I'll take white. How about alligator belt, ostrich boots, elephant hat?
Yeah, but you need a giant like silver belt buckle with a scorpion and amber. You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah.
You're right. You're right.
Yeah, just to complete the look. I want to fit in. I want to look like a weirdo out here.
I'll get a couple.
The Mexican thing does scare me a lot. The cartel and that kind of Chinese relation. And you look at the southern border, and it's not just South American. It's not really Mexicans. It's South American people. But there is a lot of, there's Koreans, there's Chinese, there's Iranians, it's just a hodgepodge of people trying to get into the United States. Yeah. And who's leading this? I mean, the coyote, you know?
There's one coyote in Tijuana who's bringing hundreds of thousands of people up from South America.
Right. And it's like...
it shows a very high level of coordination.
Right. And so you have China being very close to the cartels, and they're funneling people in. And it's also like, yes, I'm weakening it, but I'm selecting the people I want. I'm running drugs in to diminish the community. These cities that are fully populated with druggies that are creating crime and stuff, it does make me wonder, like, is there a little bit of a ploy here to China softening?
If you demoralize the population enough, will they be grateful when a new leader rolls in? If the Chinese army rolled in and said, hey, we're here, we're taking over. Or if the UN rolled in and said, hey, we're here, we're taking over. If you demoralize the population enough, will they be like, oh, okay, good.
Yeah. Well, someone that's, you don't have to be the best person, but if you're like, I got a plan and this is going to fix us and we're going to do it, I'm kind of almost compelled to be like, yeah, let's do it.
Yeah,
like,
part of leadership is just being confident.
Yeah.
And understanding that no decision is perfect, but you just have to make a decision and then execute it with confidence.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter if you made the right decision. What matters is if you can execute with confidence.
Yeah. Oh, man. But then that goes back to vigilantism of the people. Once all that's happening, what happens? What, as crime comes in, as drugs come in, as chaos comes in, as a citizen or a person that wants to live back in the golden 80s of Chevy Chase family vacation times, you know, at what point are you like,
Harry and the Hendersons? I want to go back to Harry and the Hendersons. That's my goal in life.
That should be all of our goal. That's a good movie. But at what point do you say enough is enough, or like what is actually happening? What do we do to make it better? What don't we allow in our community? Once again, it goes to that point of people in Seattle.
I wonder if there will be a rise in religion. And I've been kind of noticing it. A lot of people around, it seems like a lot of Americans are returning to Christianity. And I wonder if that's because at its core, religion, all religions are moral codes by which societies can agree.
Yeah. Yeah. I think religion can be a lot of different things. Like Jordan Peterson.
I absolutely. It doesn't even have to be God. Like, I would say in the last year and a half, I've become spiritual, but I don't adhere to a major religion. I just believe that we are all part of a underlying connected consciousness. That is what a lot of people call it God. They call it Allah. I'll call it consciousness, and I think it's all the same thing. But I've noticed that a lot of people are returning to Christianity.
Yeah.
Or becoming, what do you call it? Not found again, but converted.
Spiritually awoken.
Spiritually awoken, and they're turning to Christianity, which, whatever floats your boat. I don't care which religion you go to. I think it's actually a good thing. Like I said, I think you need to be spiritually centered if you're going to consider yourself a warrior and a protector.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I just hear more and more people talking about going to church and how they found God or whatever, and it's all new. You know what I mean? So who knows? Maybe America is going through a great awakening.
You know what I love on the internet is when you see like a hot girl sing, you're like, oh, wow, she's pretty. And then you go onto her Instagram or something, and it's got like a God quote, like, Corinthians 3:16 or something, and then it's a link to their OnlyFans. You know what I mean? You're like, oh, God's really working through you here, huh? I always thought that was weird. Even like growing up, we had a thing called Young Life. Did you have that? It was like a church affiliation, like a youth group thing.
Oh, we had youth group.
And youth groups
the only
where
reason,
you always went to get a hand job or like, you know what I mean?
I say we always went there just to cause trouble and raise hell, and eventually we're asked not to return.
I always remember youth group was where you got your kisses, your first kisses there.
God damn
you meet girls.
I got myself kicked out in 6th grade.
Oh, buddy.
Son of a bitch.
Then you had to go snuggle with a bunch of boys in Ranger panties. Imagine if you stayed in
the
youth
football
group.
team was as close as I got.
You'd be a priest or something over here swimming in it. Yeah, I think I do see a lot more people. There is kind of a spiritual awakening, but I think there's a lot of awakenings what's the South American one? Or they call it Baktuns. Anyways, their calendar year is 800 years, and they're called Baktuns, right? And is it the Mayan calendar? Is how it breaks it up. In this era we're entering, and I think in Hindu it's a Kali Yuga.
The Kali Yuga. I think we're exiting the Kali Yuga. There are different yugas, right?
Yeah.
I think we are exiting Kali.
Yes, and into
entering
the next one, but it's one of change for that.
And it's also one of ascension.
Yeah.
So who knows, now we're getting into like mysticism, but all these ancient cultures kind of believed in similar versions of the same thing.
Is that really mysticism, or is that like we say in government, like the pendulum swings back and forth?
Yep. No,
what is 800 years?
Yugas, that's where the infinity symbol comes
exactly.
from. Exactly. The yugas. And we are crossing the X, right? So
yes.
I almost said something when you were talking about the X earlier. And we're about to cross the X as we're headed into the latter half of ascension.
So what is that like? Okay, you have it, the pendulum swings every 10, 20 years. But then what does it swing every 40 to 80 years? What does it swing every 100 to 200 years?
I think the yugas are like 2,500 years.
Yeah. So once you have a society that's been built and ruled and dominated, and now more's happening in communication, maybe
we're headed for a whole world shakeup that will last generations.
That's what I mean. Yeah. Where does it stop?
Yeah,
like this,
we think in terms of our lifetime or in like 20-year blocks, but really we may be experiencing the beginning of a massive world shakeup.
Yeah, I think we are.
Yeah,
I mean, with the rate of technology and just, I don't know, people's understanding of the world they live in and how leaders affect it, how communities affect it. I think it is unlike any time we've ever had, where this is the most important time that we've ever been. Every 100 years ago, that was the most important time, and what was happening? Industry, change, tech, and then so it's happening again. And it seems like, but this is the most important one where it seems to have the most effect and the most long-lasting effect.
Yeah.
Sorry, getting over being sick.
Well, yeah, so let's think about it in terms of this. Like, what if World War I was the end of the old, like truly the end of the old feudal system of kings and czars and sort of royalty, and now we, in 1913 or 10 or whenever that started, we sort of entered what will be like a 500-year shakeup of power structures on planet Earth.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's two real things I really want to happen in this world. One is like enlightenment. I do think human beings are amazing, and our potential far exceeds our negative consequences on this world.
You're going to like this next book.
Yeah. I do think we have a huge potential, and whenever to get big muscles, it takes pain. You gotta break down muscle fibers, have lactic acid, go through agony emotionally and physically, but you become stronger for it. I do in my heart hope that this for all the fucking negativity we're going through, it does make us stronger, and unconditionally humans as a species rise to that next level. We get our next belt in human jiu-jitsu.
Yeah. Yeah, you might be right.
My second wish is that Enlightened Neanderthals, I've been thinking about this, I want to get to a point where we can sell out a theater. Wouldn't that be so
that would
fun?
be cool
Like
for like a live podcast.
an evening with the Neanderthals.
That would be fucking fun.
That's my other dream.
All right.
I mean, maybe human enlightenment's
Yeah,
cool,
we'll
but mainly let's go with the sellout of a theater, buddy.
Goddamn right.
Yeah.
We'll put that on the vision board. I'm putting that on my vision board.
All right.
I like that.
Yeah.
Along those notes, I think we're kind of winding down here a little bit. If you guys are enjoying the show, please share it with friends and family because it is hard to get the word out that the show exists. And so our biggest challenge for the next year, I think April will be. I think we released our first show in April, so we're closing in on a year, and we're doing well. Actually, the latest numbers are good. It's something like 400 listeners per episode, which
it's crazy.
It sounds like nothing, but
consistently to have that.
Yeah.
I mean, where we sit, let's toot our own horn. This is crazy. It said we're in the top 10% of podcasts in all of the world just because there's so many podcasts out there, and it's like Bill's talking about Lincoln Logs, and like someone will listen for 2 episodes. They're like, this is dumb. Yeah. To consistently have people listen to it and download it.
But I'm sure that there are a lot out there where they uploaded 3 episodes and then like, oh, okay, I don't actually have the staying power. You know what I mean? Like, think about how many people go to the gym after New Year's for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And it's like, I got other shit to do.
Yeah.
So I think the fact that we have maintained consistency is what has put us there.
Yeah.
But you're right. We are in the top 10% of worldwide podcasts. So we'll take it, even if it's a little bit of a consolation prize.
Yeah. Perfect.
Man. All right, guys. We'll catch y'all next time.
Later.